Welcome back, Riding Cars. I'm actually going to see if this video gets canceled. I'm listening to music. I'm wondering if there's going to be a copyright thing. I'm listening to Sir Francis on YouTube. Funky disco house music. Today's topic. I'm actually talking about the Hornet because I've noticed a shift. I've noticed a shift in how people are viewing it and talking about it on the internet. Because here's the thing. When I talk to people in real life about the Hornet, it's really nothing but good things. I had a salesman once say the new hybrid is junk. It was some random person who mentioned the internet and Hornets aren't reliable. However, like other real people have just, hey, it's a good car. The not the salesman, but the finance guy at the dealership even, there's three Hornets, mine and two others. And his news on the Hornet is that it's no real problem. It's a great car. It's the same as the Jeep Compass, which I've never actually talked about, and I should. But even the YouTube videos that I get from my channel, because I actually don't watch videos from my channel. Just when I have to go in and like do comments or things, or not, because I most of the time I'm uploading, and it takes forever for videos to upload. So I'm uploading. I don't have time to scroll or anything. Um, but I watch off of a different channel. I watch YouTube off of, like my original YouTube channel that I signed in for, right? And but when I have spent some time on there doing comments and things, and then in between I'll like scroll because Hornet videos come up because I have it in my tags and stuff like that, right? And it went from when I first started my channel, or even when I first bought my car, and I was looking things up about it. It went from Hornet junk, what a problem they are, how way too expensive they are, how people wouldn't buy one, from people making fun of them even at car shows and things. Dodge people. It's shifted. Now, like for the last few months, it's been, you know, now is it worth it to buy a Hornet? 32,000, 35,000, 28,000 in the United States, right? And reviewers now talking about how good the interior is, how sporty it is, how good a looking car it is. I think the Hornet bashing is over, or reached a tipping point at least. And it's the same thing I've been saying all along. It's been a really good car, and like even on the forum now, which I don't frequent as often anymore, but even on there, the the horror stories that were commonplace actually. there was a time where that's all that was happening. It was towards the end of 2023, and I think early 2024. No, it had to have been through the spring of 2024, where there was just a massive amount of people signing up to the forum to tell their horror story, looking for help for their with their car, and there was nothing but stories of this Hornet junk. And we even had a journalist come on and write a review about Hornet owners, and he came to the forum and scrolled through a bunch of stuff and found this long list of horror stories, and found my article on there, which was "I Like My Hornet," where I know all this stuff is going on with the cars, but it doesn't really matter because I like my Hornet, and these are kind of the reasons why. And just to put something positive out there, and wow, did I get a string of people off of that on that thread. Just, I like my Hornet too. The Hornet, this I like, that I like. And when I watch these new reviews, they're getting all kinds of different versions of the Hornet. And they have different, well, I'm going to say different interior versions of the Hornet, because all you see is mine, and it's pretty bland. I go off on it and I say, oh, I like the stitching, I like the feels. This is pretty much a Stelvio, an Alpha interior, of course, right? It is. It's like there is nothing different. These badges that you can replace are replaced by are supposed to be Alfa Romeo, and they're switched to Dodge, right? But everything else is the same. And when I see these car reviewers getting into a Hornet, and they really don't say which version they're getting into. Some is just the GT, some is a GT Plus, some is a GT Plus or with the red seats. There's different versions of interiors for this car, mostly the seats. I the Alcantara seats come with this red, I don't know. You see there's venting perforations on the seats, and underneath that there's this red thing. So it's this iridescent red, but gray or black, whatever they want to call it. I think it's black. These seats, and it's a really cool look. And some guys on the forum, they opted for the full red seats. The guy who had the same build as mine, like, we basically found out that ours were on the same ship, delivered at the same time. They have the same build date. I think he bought the blue one, and he got the full red seats. I think that come with the track pack. I'm not sure. But you start mixing this up, and some of these interiors are very, very nice. Mine is pretty bland. Like it is, it's pretty bland. Like, you stare at this blackness while I talk on this video, right? Or various shades of gray, right? However, sometimes I'll put the camera up on the sunroof and point it towards the dash, and even then, it doesn't catch all the detail that's going on here, and it doesn't quite do the service of how good of an interior this is. It is a bit smaller than an CRV and all of that stuff. I look at this car when I first sat in it, looked around, and then drove it. I'm a fan of small cars, small engine cars. I'm a fan of compact-ish cars. I think because you get the most fun out of little cars than big monstrous V8s and true large supercar sport car things. I really do believe that, because these little crappy cars are things that you drive every day. and you don't save it for a special occasion. So in your boring day-to-day life, you know, in these little cars, when they're fun, and sporty, you get something out of the ordinary, right? You get to smash the pedal for a bit, or get into a little bit of a twisty corner, or a bit of road that you like on your commute. You can veer off, do that, and then go home, and you had a little bit of a smile on your face for that day, right? Because with these small cars, you can get away with speeding in them and having, and I don't mean giant speed. I don't mean, you know, my dad used to have those big muscle cars from the 60s and stuff, right? And or the 70s. He had a Roadrunner or something like that. And there were guys who all had cars, built sort of race spec and stuff, or drag race spec and shit. And, you hear stories why there was a guy who would pin a $100 bill to the dashboard. And if you could grab it during the launch, you got to keep it. And nobody ever was able to grab that $100 bill because the G forces were too much. You couldn't get out of your seat and reach the dash, sort of thing, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, yeah, that's fun. That's off the scale fun. But I mean, that's not the world today. You know, I like small cars, but I like the sporty versions of the little cars, right? And that's what this is. Like, can you get a sporty version of a RAV4? Can you get a sporty version of a CRV? Can you get a sporty version of a Taos or a Tiguan? You know, I actually saw there was a guy at one of my last jobs, and he had a Kona. He had the 16 valve turbo or something. I can't remember whatever Hyundai's. But I was like, it's a 1.6 liter. I bet you that thing goes like snot and would be fun to drive. I was interested in that car. They read those little badges on it. I'm like, that. I had a 1.6 liter, no turbo, nothing. All of those cars from the 80s, they were all 1.6 liter, four cylinders. But I'm like, a modern car, a 1.6 liter with a turbo on it. I mean, that thing would be a gas, right? So when I found this car, I immediately recognized it as a sporty version of a hot hatch, of a hatchback car. It's just a modern day version of a hatchback car, which is all wheel drive, jacked up, pay more insurance, pay more in gas, you know. And I confirmed it when I got home with it and put it beside my daughter's Golf, and we opened up all the stuff to it and found out it's the exact same interior space, except the Golf is actually more functional and more practical, right? So, getting in this car, and it's got some decent styling to it. Nothing over the top, but it looks really cool. It's interesting. And I can say that straight faced because people come up and tell me that. People who don't know, I don't know, just regular people. What is that? That looks cool. Tell me about that car. And it happens all the time. My daughter, it happens to her all the time. Maybe it's because we're such good looking people. People just want to come and talk to us. Maybe it's because, no, it's not that, right? It's the car. People, you drive by and you watch people stare. People drive by. We do this on the highway. People will drive by, and if there's passengers, they're staring at the car, right? Or they're trying to get behind to read the badge on it. Go, what is that? What is that? Like, it's an interesting looking car, you know, and it's fun to drive that stuff. Now, the thing is that the looks are backed up by the performance, right? It looks hot. It does look hot. It looks a little hot, right? It looks really sporty. It does, and Reviewers actually say that walking up to the car. Oh yeah, yeah, it's got some styling there. It's got the hood. It's got these little cues that tell you, hey, there's a little something here, right? There's a little something, and you get in it, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it is sporty, and you can feel it, if you know this stuff, right? And then you drive it, and when you're doing test drives, it's boring, because nobody has a personal track like Top Gear and whatever, right? So it acts like a normal SUV. And when you put it in sport mode and you're driving it like a sane person, it feels a little sportier. Nothing out of this world. Nothing to write home about. You can just say to the reviewer, to your audience, say, "Oh yeah, I put it in sport mode, and oh, it's a little peppier, and yes, it's a little this, and yeah, yeah, is it a true sporty SUV though? You don't know because you're not doing 200 kilometers an hour down a straightaway. You don't know what it's like to take a corner in this at 80 or 165 kilometers an hour. And if you do that, that's when you find out that, yeah, yeah, this car's a sporty car, right? It does it, you know. That's why I say, I'd love to take this out on a track and see what it does. This great big roly poly SUV that isn't hugging the ground, that isn't, a Golf R or anything like that, where it's super low suspension or anything like that. It's a jacked up all wheel drive grocery machine, right? An A to B commuter. And I always kind of looked for those cars when I was younger. Once I learned that boring cars made by Honda, Toyota, Volkswagen, you know, had sportier versions of those boring cars. And those cars were actually little gems. And it's said today, you know, it's proven today because people are now going back and, Initial D came out and you got the Toyota AE86 or whatever, right? And back here in Canada, what that was a Toyota Corolla GTS, which I didn't know anything about until I started driving Toyotas and finding out that, oh yeah, you can buy a Super GT or a Celica GT, or a crappy Corolla, you know, but they had a sporty, really sporty version of those things, which was the GTS for the Supra and the GTS for the Celica and the GTS for the Corolla. And it was a world of difference in those cars. You know, you could attack corners. Same with the Golf. I thought all Golfs were the same until I found out there was this GTI thing. And when you got into it drove totally different than a regular GTI. The regular, I don't know, whatever version, DLs or GLs, right? And it was the same thing with the Jettas, you know. When Nissan made a sporty car, they made a sporty car, but they really didn't have sporty versions of crappy cars like the Nissan Sentra. It wasn't until later, it wasn't until the end of that era that they came out with the Nissan Sentra Spec R or whatever it was. And I was like, oh, finally, finally, finally. And it's kind of cool because all the other car makers kind of did away with it. Like Toyota, a long time ago, got away, stopped doing sporty. Absolutely. Nothing, there was nothing that they sold that was sporty. It looked sporty, but there was actually nothing that was sporty in these cars. Not like they used to. Like the suspension wasn't upgraded or anything like that. They just made the cars look sporty. I was actually depressed by Toyota they went through decades where they did not make anything sporty. If you bought the Corolla S or you bought the Camry S, you know, you were just getting a regular Camry with a bunch of body kit on it, and that's it. Kind of like the fake tuners back in the early 90s, where they wouldn't change anything with the engine or suspension. They would just clap on some body kit and a wing and then call it tuned. Fake, fake. That's what Toyota has been for the last forever. Finally they came out with the Super, and then nobody bought it. I love it. Wasn't popular. uh, but all the little cars, right? And when I got in this car and I drove it, and I'm like, no, I can tell right away because I've done this. I've done this already, and I've driven those little SUVs, and every one of them was not something I talk about because of not worth talking about. It's all blah, and I couldn't figure out why people wanted to spend more money on. However, I was even considering like a BMW X3, and I was like, you know, after driving a regular BMW and have to get an SUV, I'd be like, just move over into a 3 Series X thing. This might be where I gotta go. This might be, but it's a BMW. I'm gonna have to replace a lot of things on it. But that's what you know, that's where I put this car. I put it with the Germans. I'd put it with an Audi Q3 because I know that car is sportier feeling with, when this car's half the price tag, or let's say three-quarters of the price tag. You know, yes, I don't know. I'm not really trying to convince anybody. I'm just trying to give you a point of view here. I think I'm not here to sell Hornets. I'm really not. But I do know that the car's got a bad rap, that people never looked at it. And I'm a car guy, and I'm like, hey, this is a fun car. You should probably take a look at it. If you want to go drive something boring, humdrum, and need cargo space, go buy your Forester. You know, because the Forester will tow. I would say all track, but I looked at that. I was actually thinking of going in and getting an all track. That's the one I wanted, but I needed to tow. But the all track has no towing capacity. So yeah, and when I got into all the other SUVs, I'm like, no. And Ford's sportiness of their sporty part of whatever they try to do for sport, it's so electronic. I don't know. I'm not into it. Not into it. Like for their Escape or whatever. My sister had a Focus. That's what it was. Titanium thing. It had sport mode in the shifter, and how it all worked together wasn't that sporty. Just made you think you were sporty, I guess, right? But this, go on the Hornet forum, and we're all in agreement. Looks good, and it is sporty. And the guys who drive these things like it can be, not like it should be, but like it can, like yeah, it puts a smile on your face. It's a hoot. It's a hoot. Which I'll go back to the beginning and say, you know, it's a small econobox little car, and I'm declining that. And it does the everyday things that it's supposed to do. It gets you to work, it gets you to the grocery store, it runs your errands, it can put people in it and go somewhere. And all that boring stuff that you are making a payment on every month, you know, is rewarded every once in a while when you can take it and mash the pedal or throw the steering wheel into a corner, you know, and you're rewarded because the car responds to it, and it does put a smile on your face if you're into that. If you This isn't for badge people, right? This isn't a car, as you said, a status symbol, because it's so mixed up to tell anybody. Nobody knows what it is. There is no point. Go buy your BMW. Go buy the Alfa Romeo Tonale, right? It has the looks and all of that, right? I think these are cheaper than the Alpha, like 5 grand or something like that. I think that's why a lot of people did go with the Hornet. Well, mostly because people don't trust the Alpha thing here in North America, and in North America, nobody cares about Alfa Romeo except a few diehard people. Whereas in Europe, it's kind of an accepted thing, right? Here, nobody cares. Here, there's more Dodges running on these roads, more Dodge Hornets running on these roads than Alfa Tonales by a long shot. Even though Hornets aren't being sold, which says something, right? There's more information about this car than there is on the Alfa Romeo Tonale. So get a clear stretch of highway for a little bit, and then I can mash the pedal and then go. Yeah, I love the torque steer. It does all the wiggly things, right? Or don't slow down for the corner, just and it holds it, you know. And then you go, yeah, okay, this is fun, right? And then you get the wonky setup, and I showed you guys where I hit sport mode, and then the sport comes on, and then I turn off sport mode, and this says sport off, and this says hybrid all of a sudden now, right? After all the downloads, right? All the fixes, it broke it. I do have to say that, yeah, this is just my opinion. I'm just some guy in a car. I'm not telling anybody to buy whatever. Saying this is a driver's car. It is a fun driver's car, as things are, because you can drive anything. If you're a driver, you'll drive anything, and you'll drive it so that it makes it fun, right? But you're rewarded with the performance. You're rewarded that it does hold a corner. It does. You are rewarded when you can take it a little bit hairy, and this thing is stable. It's stable to do it for a boring car. For a boring SUV or compact utility vehicle, whatever class this is, right? Not ultra compact or subcompact. I think it's just compact. And yeah, that's my 2 cents. Leave your comments in the comments section because I do answer them. Consider a like, consider a subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.